Assalamualaikum and hello, I'm Siti Azzila bint Amit. I'm presenting our papers on factor affecting leisure reading habits among pupils in a rural school in Sarawak. This is our abstract. In our abstract, we discuss on the benefits of leisure reading, challenges in reading, particularly in English, as English is considered as a second language in Malaysia and foreign language in most of rural school in Sarawak. The aims of the study, model, theory, the number of the respondent, the data collection method, the data analysis, the finding, as well as the implication of the research also discussed in this abstract. The keywords are leisure reading, reading motivation, rural school, English as a foreign language. Introduction. Reading is beneficial to increase children's vocabulary and sentence construction, can help them in other communication skills such as writing and speaking. Reading is indeed a complex skill. Many people in Malaysia are still struggling in reading, particularly in English, especially in rural area. This is due to English as a second language in Malaysia and foreign language in most of rural schools, especially in Sarawak. This is because English is only used in the classroom and doesn't serve purpose in their daily life activity. The leisure reading habits among children also had declined due to language barrier, and there is only limited number of study in leisure reading habits, especially leisure reading habits among people in rural school. Hence, this research conducted to understand the factors affecting leisure reading habits among people in rural school in Sarawak. Leisure reading habits. It is a voluntary reading during free times for the purpose of pleasure. In this study, leisure reading is the act of reading for pleasure during free time. While leisure reading is the focus of this study, this is because it is one of the ways to promote positive impact on pupils' academic performance. Leisure reading habit among young children has declined. The time spent by them to read during their leisure time also very short. The purpose of reading for pleasure, especially during leisure time, is also declined. Due to that, this research is aimed to understand factors affecting leisure reading habits among children, particularly in rural Sarawak, in order to increase their leisure reading habits. Reading is influenced by intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Reading motivation in constant concept in attitude influence open reading and learning to read model by Methuselah 1994 is in this model. Reading motivation is influenced by three determinants which are values, goal, and self-concept. In self-determination theory by Ryan and Desi 2000, there are three basic needs that need to be satisfied, which are competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Research method. The research design is qualitative research case study. The research site is a primary school in Sarawak, Malaysia. The school is a low enrollment school. Therefore, case study design is suitable to be applied in this research due to limited number of available respondents. There are 10 respondents chosen using purposive sampling. 7 respondents were 10 years old and 3 respondents were 11 years old. The data was collected through focus group interview and teacher individual interview. Both of these interview is a semi-structured interview, and focus group interview is divided into 2 groups. This group is determined based on the midterm exam result. Group 2 is below average, and group 1 is below average, and group 2 is average. Result. The data obtained from the interviews indicate 5 factors affecting respondent leisure reading habits. There are reading comprehension skill, self-satisfaction, teacher encouragement, peer influence, and parents' involvement. The first factor is reading comprehension skill. And the researcher found out that respondents with higher comprehension skill, which is average student, were more motivated to read than respondents with lower comprehension skill, who are below average. Based on this interview excerpt, we can see that people from below average are not interested to read. They only read sometimes. They prefer books with less number, and they prefer books in Malay language where it is easier for them to understand as it is closer to their mother tongue, and all the respondents are Iban language user. However, respondents with higher proficiency level in English are more interested and motivated to read. For example, P4, even though there are limited number of available reading material, she is willing to read any type of material available, including textbook. P6 stated that she loved to read magazine on her favorite celebrity. P7 stated that she loved reading simple books, and P9 stated that she loved reading because reading made her happy. From the excerpt from teacher individual interview, he mentioned that pupils were reluctant to read because they did not understand the text they read. Pupils are also lack the motivation to read due to the fact that they value reading less. The second factor is self-satisfaction. Curiosity and self-interest are additional factors that could motivate respondents to do leisure reading. Respondents read books they favor because they were curious about the illustration of the books and the storyline. For example, P1 stated that he liked to read during his leisure time because he liked the picture in the book and the storyline. P4 loved to read the book that had element of fantasy. P6 stated that she loved the book that had a sense of humor and a magazine on her celebrity, and P10 stated that she loved new books and the books that had element of fantasy. In the interview with teacher, the teacher stated that the best way to attract people to read was by providing them with suitable reading material. He mentioned that he was able to attract one of the people to read by providing him with the book that he liked. The third factor is teacher encouragement. The finding shows that a teacher had vital role to motivate respondents to do leisure reading by providing respondents with suitable reading material. The teacher also helped respondents to read and understand the story they read. This can be proven with the excerpt from focus group interview where the P2 stated that the teacher helped him to choose suitable book to read. He added that the teacher helped him to read and understand the story. Meanwhile, P3 also stated the same thing, where teacher provide him with books to read for a week and help him to understand the story. In the teacher individual interview, the teacher stated that pupils would feel excited when he mentioned about lesson in the library. He also added that people were excited when they were allowed to read the books he brought to the classroom after they finished their work, and he also agreed that it is important to encourage people to read. The fourth factor is peer influence. The finding shows that peer influence did influence respondents to read. Through material sharing, shared reading, respondents were able to motivate one another to read. In addition, they liked to discuss the book they read and suggest the books to others. For example, P7 stated that she read books with her friend and suggested the book they read to other respondents. In the teacher individual interview, the teacher also mentioned that people enjoy reading when they were reading with their friends. He added that people would share and discuss about the book they read and try to understand the meaning of the book they read. The last factor is parent involvement. The findings indicate that parents did play a vital role to motivate respondents to read. Parents provide people with reading materials too. For example, P6 stated that her parents frequently bought her books to read, and P9 also stated that her mother always brought her to the bookshop to buy storybook. Parental involvement was stated by the teacher in the interview as the person who was best to influence leisure reading habits among people. He stated that people usually forget what they learn after long holiday. Hence, it is important for home learning and home reading to reinforce memory in pupils' learning. Discussion. In this discussion, I will discuss three points. The first point is pupils with higher comprehension skill are more interested to do leisure reading compared to people with lower comprehension skill. This is due to the competence needs that has been satisfied, and they also able to accomplish the reading task successfully as compared to the struggle readers. They also have high self-concept based on cornerstone concept, because they view themselves as positive, and this leads to the high self-concept. They are also more confident in their reading. Second point is people are motivated to read if it suits their interests. This is because they also had satisfied the autonomy needs based on self-determination theory. This is because they have control towards their reading and able to choose their reading materials based on their preferences. And the second is the goal. Based on cornerstone concept, they have the goal when they are reading because they have their own interests, and their personal goal will lead to the positive attitudes toward reading. And the third point is people's surrounding does affect their leisure reading habits. This is because they had satisfied their relatedness needs based on self-determination theory. In this research, we can see that the respondent had received support from their teacher, friends, and parents, and the parents also value reading. Therefore, they will value reading too. And reading motivation could be influenced by reading value held by the children within the family and society. As a conclusion, based on this finding, it is hoped that the teachers, parents, and policymakers should play a more active role in encouraging leisure reading among young children. There are various programs that should be implemented to increase reading motivation, such as reading is the heartbeat of knowledge, which is also known as NILAM, that could inculcate leisure reading habits among children. Concept-oriented reading instruction, which is also known as CORI, to increase children reading motivation and comprehension. And the suggestions for further studies, there are two suggestions that I would like to suggest here. The first suggestion is the research should focus on the suggested program so that the research is more focused and able to know the effects of programs on leisure reading habits among children. The research also should integrate more instruments so that the data are more diverse and gather different perception from various possible angles. That's all from me. Thank you for listening.